Hey guys, what's up and welcome to another episode of the Goodcast Show. So if you guys have been watching this podcast from the way since we started, we've always, one party that's featured very heavily in this podcast is of course the Socialist Party of Malaysia, PSM. Our first guest was then Secretary General Mr. Siva, then we went on to Bawani, Arul, we had Hui Ting, we had Arwind and many more I'm supposed in the future coming their way. But today we have the big man at PSM, the chairperson himself, Dr. Jeyakumar. Now before I introduce him, just a bit of background on the man himself. He's a medical doctor who's worked in the Ministry of Health for over 19 years in Penang, Sarawak and Perak. Then in 1999, he left to contest for the Sungai Siput parliamentary seat and he won that seat and was the MP of Sungai Siput from 2008 to 2018. He's currently, as I said, the chairperson of PSM and he's an amazing author. He's written many fantastic books. I've read two. This is my second one, which is Notes on the Way Forward, a Socialist Perspective by Dr. Jeyakumar Devaraj. So it's my great pleasure to have him here today. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jeyakumar. When I read your articles in this book, it kind of seems that the issues that we face as a country are more class-based as opposed to what most people think in society that it's ethnically based. It's more class issues that we face. Am I right in making that conclusion from this book?
No, I think, ethnic issues also are there. It affects people, But I think class issues, socioeconomic issues take up about 70%.
Yeah.
And then ethnic issues about 20%, other issues, So, but we tend to focus too much on the ethnic issues and ignore the, socioeconomic issues.
Yeah. In this book, speaking still about ethnic issues, you do touch a bit on the Bumiputra crisis that is happening in terms of the inequality in distribution of wealth intra-ethnically.
True.
Why in that case you go the ethnic route and not the class route, which is the PSM's focus?
No, I think that also is a factor. I mean, if you looked at the figures regarding EPF median savings pre and post COVID, you'll find that on the whole, the Malay community had much less EPF savings before COVID.
Yeah.
And then after COVID, they had to really draw down quite a lot. So that seems to indicate to me that even in the modern sector of the economy, where they're paying EPF, they're part of the formal sector, their earnings are less than the non-Malays. So that is a fact, of life. And you've got to face that. Facing that doesn't make you a racist, is it?
No, I'm not saying you're racist.
No, but you must realize there is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, look around KL or even Ipoh. Who are the guys riding a Grab motorbike? I see hardly any Chinese or Indians. It's all Malays and some of them are graduates. So there are problems that are that way as well, you see.
Okay.
So we need to look into it and see how do we solve those. So when we start with that analysis, it makes you understand that some more affirmative action, is maybe not a bad idea, as long as it doesn't go to the Malay elite. They talk about the Malay poor and get affirmative action, but then they garner a major share of that. That is not quite fair, But you have affirmative action that goes to the Malays who are still poor. I think I have no trouble with that. And I think no one in Malaysia should have a trouble with that,
Yeah, definitely. I interviewed in a few episodes ago. His name is W.N. Kuzeri. He's also one known Kuzeri. He's also an author. He's a professor, young guy, very young guy. And we had this conversation about the NEP and how it's sort of biased to certain people. He also brought up certain issues with agencies, government agencies associated with helping the Malay community. And I couldn't help but realize that the problems that we face as a country is the same across all races. This sort of the disparity in wealth distribution occurs in all races, right? But how is it that in Malaysia, we have each community has sort of been pushed into their own silos. And within those teacups, they think that, no, this problem is only ours and not everybody else's.
I think it's a political system. I mean, initially when we had this, what they call this consociational kind of thing, where each community is organized ethnically, its own political party, then they come together and they share. It was effective for a while, But the problem is to become a leader within your own community, you got to be a better champion of your people than the other guy, the other Indian, can I say Indian? So then there becomes a competition between MIC and then the guy who's in DAP, and they all have to have more and more radical or, brave kind of positions, and they all tend to exaggerate the problems and kind of vilify the other, demonize the other, create an enemy where it doesn't exist. For example, Malays are told that DAP has got nothing but ill will for them, And a lot of them believe it now, you see.
Yeah, they do.
So I think that process going on over 30, 40 years has created that mental set, So I think it's a political system. A race-based political parties tend to do this because to be the leader of my group, I got to impress on them that I'm really fighting for you. So I got to exaggerate, I got to make up stories, Isn't it?
To sort of get the whole social media leverage even. At the price of the people's empowerment and upliftment. You were in government for 10 years. You were an MP for 10 years,
That's right?
And so you were part of the system.
I was.
So there's one letter here, it's an open letter to the Bumiputra Economic Congress that you wrote, right? Why do you think that despite them having the affirmative action, despite it going on for the length that it has failed to address, to basically benefit all Malays as opposed to just an elite minority?
No, I don't think it has failed, I mean, we have created a pretty big Malay middle class, I mean, if you look at the employment figures in, say, 1957, 59, less than 5% of the doctors in the country were Malays. Despite Malays making up 70% of the population of the country. Now it's about 45, 48%. Maybe it hasn't come up to their population level, but it is really built up, Simply like teachers. Remember, in those days, a lot of Chinese teachers, Indian teachers, very few Malay teachers. Now it's it's built up. So I think in that way, building the middle class, the professionals, it has worked very well. Where it has actually failed is they have failed to come into the SMEs. The small and medium industries. That's where I think it hasn't been able to succeed. Somehow they're not able to make that. Malays are in GLCs, where the government has come in and started the GLCs. I think they're running it pretty well. I mean, many of the banks and many of the big firms like Guthrie, Saimdabia, a lot of the senior leaders there are Malays and they're doing a fairly reasonable job, But it's the small businesses
that they have not been able to come in.
Haven't really able to come into that, So I won't say it's a complete failure,
But I guess if you have a substantial amount of the B40 in Malaysia made out of the Malays, I think you could say that with affirmative action, that shouldn't be happening. Is it fair to say that?
I think in any society there'll be a B40, right?
But not because if I'm not mistaken, I think in terms of you have Indians and the first or second is the Malay community.
Yeah, I mean, let's say if income was totally evenly distributed, you'll still get about 60% of the B14 being Malays because Malays make up 60% of the population. The thing is, should B40 be poor? I mean, in every society, you'll have a bottom 40%.
Of course.
But how low is it? In Malaysia, the problem is that bottom 40% is too low because of what we call wage suppression. We're not able to raise our wages. One of the issues I talk about in the book.
Yes.
Because we are stuck with this competition with other ASEAN countries. Our whole economic model, our model of growth is to be a low cost
attraction for FDIs.
And all that. So we have to keep our wages down. Wages tend to go up, we bring in foreign workers and push it back down. So you have people, working and getting 1,700 a month. That's not enough. And that's why the B40, I mean, in every society there must be a bottom 40%. But the question is, how low is it? Can they live a decent life? We should be able to push up their wages so they can live a decent life. But you can't have a society without a bottom 40%, right? So you does have bottom 40%.
In this book, you do talk about wage suppression. One of the reasons you talk about, one of these that you point out is the over-dependence on foreign labor. But there is also another chapter in this book where you talk about the real situation of foreign labor in Malaysia and how they are exploited. You are PSM, so you've been on the ground all the time, I know. How bad is it? How bad is the condition of the foreign labor within Malaysia who come to Malaysia?
I think it's very varied. It depends. Some of them come in and they work in factories and they got a job, it's okay. But about 2 years ago, we had a whole number, I think almost 400,000 Bangladeshis were brought in through these big agencies. It's a big syndicate. And they had to pay about 20,000 per person to come in. And they came in here and they found they had no jobs. They were just put up in flats and packed up and either no jobs completely or jobs once or twice a month, and the boss will just come and feed them. And remember, I think in Pengerang, there was a group of them who marched to the
Police station, yeah.
police station, that round. And we took up a case as well, because another group of them, another about 400 of them, and they came and complained to us. We took up the case. So that kind of thing also is there. So I think it's very varied, between, some of them are lucky, they're able to work, and then they go back and actually they're able to send money back, and they're able to repair their house and all that. It works for some of them. But others of them get tricked. They don't get the jobs they were promised, Then there are those of them who are in this situation, because they don't want to go back, they run away, and they become the Parti lah. Pendatang asing tanpa izin, Actually, they came in with the permission, but because of this, and they can't afford to go back, so they run away, and they become part of the underground economy where they work. And of course, then they can get bullied as well. They get
exploited because there's no...
You can't complain. I mean, you're not supposed to go and work in the sector what you're doing, so you can't go and complain. So that's the whole thing. So we look at Sungai Siput, for example. In the rural area, people don't get the minimum wage. I got Malay men who are doing security guard work, 1,002 for 12-hour shifts.
Wow.
Yeah. 12-hour shifts, 1,002. So I've asked him, hey, look, what are you doing? He says, boss, because I pergi tanya, I'll lose my job. So for him, at least he's getting 1,002, is it? So, and is this because of this problem that you have oversupply of labor, and then they run away, they've been mistreated, they run away? I don't blame them. I blame the system that brings so many of them in. The people who bring them in are these big syndicated companies who are linked to the ministers who control immigration, the Home Ministry, which has been an UMNO thing right up to 2018.
My goodness.
So even now, I think Anwar's group has got a problem in handling this, because all the big kingpins are linked to the strong guys.
So it's hard for them to do anything or enact any change, because you have all these cases of little Napoleons and all that everywhere.
And not only that, the big fellas. So YB Sim.
Big Napoleons.
So because people like YB Sim, for example, he goes against someone, and he'll probably find they are a big businessman, and they're linked to a senior UMNO person who Anwar can't afford to offend.
My goodness.
So his hands are tied.
So in such a situation, and since you are MP and you're in Parliament, the system is the thing that needs change.
I think at the root of it is the model of development. We are trying to grow our country by being attractive to foreign investments. And to do that, we keep taxes down and bring our taxes lower and lower. We keep our labor wages down. That is a fundamental problem. We're relying on capital from overseas. And they've got no loyalty to us. If Vietnam gives them a lower rate or Thailand gives them a lower rate, they'll run there. So actually they're playing us off against them. So in fact, what we should really do is Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, we all should get together and say, hey, let's all raise our minimum wage 10% per year. All of us. In Jakarta, the minimum wage is 1,300 per month. Ours is 1,007. I think in Cambodia, it's only about $700-800 a month. So we keep our differentials, because maybe they need that differential, because we got other things to pull.
Yeah.
They don't have. So we ask them to also come to our same standard minimum wage, then they will lose out in getting investment. Okay, never mind. Keep our differentials. But you from your base, you go up 10%. I from my base, I go up 10%. We do it for 5 years. We'll all be 50% more minimum wage. So the whole of ASEAN will be a better market. Everyone will have, all our workers have more money, which means they will buy from our businesses. So our businesses will have more investment opportunities. They'll have more employment. They can offer more employment. It's a kind of a win-win in that way, you see.
But in that case, wouldn't then that potentially push the FDI to other countries like, say, Mexico and all this, who have a younger workforce, who are also, they could play with the pricing and all that? They
might, but the thing is, here the main thing is they're able to run from Malaysia to Thailand or Malaysia to Vietnam, If we all go up together, they can't go back to the US, You see, our wage rate at 1,007 a month is actually $2 US per hour, okay? The US wage rate is about $12.50 an hour. $2 and $12.50, 6 times more. So the US capitalist is not going to run back to the US or to Europe. But like you said, maybe they may try and run to Mexico. But Mexico isn't that low either, So that's why I think all these countries, we're getting screwed by these guys. And it's only because we are divided and disunited. So PSM, one of the PSM thing is we should get together and call their bluff, and we all go up together. And so 10 years, we double our minimum wages. That means it won't be working class poverty anymore. Workers, when they're working, will have a decent salary.
Yeah.
And the market will be good. And all the countries in ASEAN can sell to that same market. We are a common market, you see.
Yeah, just to highlight that, I think there was one really good statement in this book where you say that our GDP has grown by 24 times over the past 50 years, yet our median wage of factory workers is less than 2 times what it was in that 50 years. That is amazing. That is amazing. It seems to be the reason for all the problems.
That's right. That's right.
The capitalist problem. Now, but again in this book, you also highlight this, right? You talk about FDIs. You call it, we have lost our economic sovereignty, right, because of these FDIs and all that. But if we were to increase corporate tax back to 40% or something higher than what it is now, and if we were to do what you did, of course there will be loss in FDIs. Of course there would be.
Depends how you do it. Are you going to do it unilaterally Malaysia alone, or you talk to the ASEAN neighbours?
Okay, say if you do it just here, because I think ASEAN, I don't think you would agree with me, but ASEAN relationships, the ASEAN thing, that togetherness bond has not been strong since forever. Now, because I think we are just so different within our context. You see, even now we have, Thailand and the whole border dispute and all that. So it's difficult. If we did that, is there a way that you think we could mitigate the loss of FDIs for our economy?
I think not that easy, because we are now very dependent on the foreign technology, on the foreign markets, It's not something you do overnight.
Yeah.
So, as PSM, we would say you've got to do it very carefully. You don't overdo it and scare away capital, and then you're going to have a lots of problem with jobs. You see, if you look at Malaysia, one major problem is we do not have enough jobs for all the people. Of our graduates, you get about 220,000 graduates every year. But graduate level jobs that are created every year is only about 100 to 120,000. So you have a gap of about 100,000. So what we're saying is there are people we are training as graduates, but there are no jobs. But it doesn't mean there's no need for them. There's a lot of need for people in the care economy, old people, young children, inner city flats and all that. You need people to go and humanize these places. So you need nurses, you need social workers, you need, people to work with young people. But so some of the graduates can be employed there. The other thing, of course, is the green economy, the circular economy. Talk about things like, recycling, reusing things. Can we do recycling in a stronger way? Can we do waste to energy kind of things? Can we rehabilitate our forests? So things like that is also where you can create jobs. Unfortunately, some of those jobs may not be very profitable. So it's got to be done by government or an agency that government pays money to. It can only be done if the government doesn't have a fiscal deficit.
Yeah.
It comes back to the taxes, you see.
Yeah. Which I'll touch that on that as well. But, it seems like also another reason for these problems that we are a trading nation. And we have not, I don't know why, we've never seemed to want to become more independent.
I think it's partly political philosophy. But having said that, I think now the world is much more integrated and interconnected compared to before. Most countries are, interconnected with other countries.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But I think we got to look at the philosophy of it, because World Bank, World Trade Organization, all that were pushing this kind of integration, without saying that, certain sectors of the economy, you cannot integrate so much and become so dependent on imports. For example, food.
Yeah.
Terrible. Malaysia is terribly food insecure.
Yes.
If you look at our cereals, rice, we should be growing more. We only are growing, producing about 55% of the rice that we consume.
Yeah.
45% is imported. And you talk about wheat, of course, we can't grow it. So all that, So if you take rice and wheat, maize, we are actually very, very dependent. So WTO has done us in that line, and we have just bought that. So certain things, like energy, food, maybe medications, these shouldn't be something that you're dependent on everyone else. You must have your own, either in Malaysia itself or regionally. With other regional ASEAN countries together, we say with Indonesia and Philippines, whoever is interested, so come together, we produce this set of 200 medicines, which are the main medicines.
Yeah.
We'll produce some, you produce some, we'll buy from you, you buy from us. But we create that capacity. We talk of quality control. We talk about labs. We build the whole facility among us. I mean, you can't do and expect them to always buy from us. You got to share that with them.
Yeah, definitely.
So they produce some, we produce some, Thailand produce some. We share it among us, but we make sure the standards are there. We have our labs. It can be done, you see.
If we take the example of food security, I think in terms of our caloric sufficiency, we only can, locally, we can only supply about 30% of that, right? 30% of that. And I recently interviewed the secretary of Pesawa, Nur Fitri, right? Nur Fitri is
Yes, Amir, yeah.
Amir, yeah. And I mean, it was just mind-boggling talking to him because, like for instance, every time we hear in Parliament, we hear that the government is giving 2.6 billion, this billion, that billion to thing, and then he was telling me that no, actually,
It doesn't go directly to them, right?
It benefits the vendors.
Yes.
And then you have cases where, for instance, the vendors don't provide the right seeds.
Yes. Or the fertilizers.
The fertilizers is not given in time.
Yes.
And then you have this case where the factories or whatever that they go and sell the rice to has been already been controlled. So they have no freedom in terms of price bargaining. There doesn't really seem a sincere move by the government, and not just now. I think these problems have been happening for long, to become more food independent, right? So,
True.
We are saying this, and you are saying it, which I completely agree with you. But it doesn't seem like they want to. This being a trade nation, let's just keep on being a trade nation. So there isn't a sincere need, a want, right?
Well, I think okay. I think the nature of government has changed. I think under Tun Razak during his time, they were much more social-democratic.
Yeah.
And a lot of these programs, like for example, giving fertilizers or giving seeds, were run by government agencies. And when Mahathir came along, he said, no, let's do it differently. Let's use it to develop Malay business acumen. So they gave it to businesses. So that's when the problem started. Because when you give it to businesses and their focus actually is profits, then things go off the rail,
Yeah,
Programs that were actually meant focusing on the Malay, Pesawa, then becomes, how can the businesses make money off it as well, Then that becomes more like the important thing. So that's one major problem.
Because another interesting fact that you write in this book is that you give the example of Felda. And how I don't know, I guess it was done as what you said, to empower more Malay businesses. So you have cases like replanting was outsourced. Everything is outsourced. Again, I don't understand, because shouldn't the goal of NEP to be to not just empower people with money, but with knowledge and skill on how to run that business? You remove the need to know how to replant. You remove all this, and then you burden these settlers with debt.
You see, the problem is this, when they replant the entire whole Felda block, which means that you got to chop it down, then you got to replant. It takes about 3-4 years to come online again. So these families need to be supported. So the replanting privatized contractor who does it gives them 1,500 a month.
This is not enough.
But it's as like a loan. So by the end of 4 years, they've got this huge loan already, So then the deal is the contractor will manage the field, produce the oil palm, sell it, get back his what he we used for replanting, the money offered to them, and often you find that it drags on and on, because I'm the company, I'm now handling it. You don't know how much I'm actually.
Yeah.
So actually, I can give a 20 or 30% lower figure of what actually I'm doing, and I can say my costs are so much higher when they're not really that high. There are many ways I want to make money out of the whole thing and drag it on. So by the time the next replanting comes up, it's only about that time you give it back to the fella. How could the fella accumulate enough money to?
Exactly.
But even this, I was thinking,
it's a damning system.
No, but even this, they could have come around it. Because they could have said that, okay, we'll replant everyone got 10 acres, right? We'll replant 5 acres of yours. The other 5 acres you carry on. So you survive on the 5 acres, we replant these 5 acres. After 5 years, it comes online, we do the other 5 acres. Why can't you do that way? Why allow them to go into such heavy debt?
when I read this book, right, I do feel a bit of sympathy to PSM and even your struggle and what you guys have done, because the things that you all are fighting for, let's say, for example, food security, it is a very, very important topic. It's the food on your table. It is a unifying problem for all of us, regardless of your religion, which God you pray, it doesn't matter. It's food and sustenance, right? But why do you think these things do not get covered in mainstream media? Instead, it's not a big deal. This is food. This is our basic need. And do you think that PSM fighting for things like this has sort of also pushed you out to a bit of the fringe, because these issues, for some reason, are not given importance in the mainstream?
Could be, because I think, like as far as the World Bank and WTO say no problem, as long as you have a source you can buy this food cheaply elsewhere, then you're okay. You're food secure. Their definition of food security is a bit different from ours, you see?
Yeah.
So we look at things like, you look at that, we have about 8.4 million hectares of agricultural land. And of that, about almost 80% is for oil palm and rubber.
I think you said only 7% is for rice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then other things, vegetables and all that. So we so little of our agricultural land is being used for food for ourselves. We're producing for the world market. These are the kind of things that maybe the government should look at and say, why don't we ask the largest plantation companies to set aside maybe 2% of their land to produce food?
I read the article, You wrote that.
So that's not unreasonable. Not saying give 50%. There's no need to give 50%. 2%, 3%, start back. So if they can find out what grows, what tubers grow, can they grow rice in some parts of their thing, then they develop the capacity. Then there is a real shortage of grain in the world. We have already got our system has been primed already. We can expand to scale.
I think also another shocking case was you talked about this incident in Perak, where the farmers were being evicted because the lands were going to be given up to development. Again, that's why when I read this book, I think myself, wait a minute, are they playing the fool, or what's going on? We need food security, right? Because of we see, every day you see conflicts happening in Iran and Tunisia. Now, things can happen anytime. We need to preserve our food security, right? Now, on that note, I found this paragraph in your book really interesting. I want to get your opinion on this. You said, are we able to utilize the wealth of this country to benefit the Rakyat? If the answer is no, then we should start discussing long-term strategies to regain control of our economy to ensure that our people get a fairer share of the wealth that they are producing. So who are we regaining control of our economy from?
From the corporate class, really. Because actually, you see, like now, the corporates actually control us, indirectly. When we go talk, we had meetings with the ministry, talking about increasing minimum wage, they're scared. They're afraid if you increase minimum wage, then you'll have less investments, and you have less jobs. So you nominally have a higher. So that thing is there. But that system that has allowed corporates to have so much power is the whole series of trade agreements that allows capital to move. Right now, there's no capital controls. You can invest in Malaysia if you don't want. You can take the money out. There's no. The other thing is, like for example, let's say if we wanted to ask Malaysian manufacturers to raise wages, manufacturers, and we tell them that we will protect the local market, but we can't. Let's say a fellow is producing shoes or producing clothes and selling to Malaysia itself. And he says, look, the fellow from Thailand or Vietnam is going to undercut me if I raise my prices too much. We're not in a position to put tariffs because our ASEAN Free Trade Agreement specifically says tariffs can never be raised. They can only be lowered. And they've lowered 98% of them to zero.
Goodness.
So that means we cannot tell our local fellas, no, you must pay more, but we will protect your markets. At least Malaysian markets will protect. You can't even do that. So we have tied our hands, you see. The Free Trade Agreement ties our hand.
No, that's a thing that I was like, okay, because I remember, I think a few months ago, there was news that we finally were able to sell our oil palm to the UK, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because of the CPTPP agreement, right? But in this book, you say, desist the CPTPP immediately. Why? Well, what's your issue with the CPTPP?
It's more of the same. They got all kinds of ridiculous clauses there, They have a thing called the ISDS, investor-state dispute settlement, where if the investor feels the government has done something that affects his profits, he can take you to an international tribunal. It doesn't have to come to a local thing. So can you imagine a company called Philip Morris took the Australian government to international tribunal because the Australian government asked Philip Morris, a cigarette company, to put some graphic pictures on their boxes. And Philip Morris said, if I do that, I'm going to lose sales. You're expropriating me. You're taking away my... I mean, look, I would agree if a company comes in, invests in Malaysia, and suddenly you go and take away his assets or take control of it, they should have some rights. But here, if you're doing something on a health basis and you say, because of that, my sales are going to drop and you're expropriating me, and they're asking Australian government to pay them a couple of $1 billion, you know, I mean, what we'll say in Tamil, we'll say, it's timru, you know, it's like, it's too much, isn't it?
Too much.
Yeah. You know, but that's the kind of thing that the TPPP has, see?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Patent laws, in the way which you can do evergreening, you can try and extend your patent laws, you know. So you end up paying medicines which are... See, I got a patient who's on rheumatoid arthritis, was on a very special drug. Costs about... In Malaysia, the drug will cost 2,500 per month. But that same drug can be got for 1/10 the value in India. Same drug. But we cannot import it here. But the patient can go and bring it back. And we can give lah. But can you imagine? This is the kind of things that we have. So these are the kind of things that the TPPA and this kind of bring in, you see.
One of the things you mentioned in this book, in one sentence, you talk about how maybe we should buy our medicines at a more reasonable rate. You having worked in the Ministry of Health, is it being purchased at a rate that is unreasonable?
I don't have the figures, you know. But I think the government does procure a lot of generics as well, which is a good idea. We should buy generics, but you must have a good testing system to make sure that the bioequivalence, the levels in the plasma and all that reach the standard it's supposed to reach. And you can do that. You can make sure you can buy. There are a lot of generics being made in India, also in Canada, in Japan. So you've got to make sure which of the companies doing the job properly.
Okay.
We should do that.
Another thing in this book also you touch, you call it the payment for services provided system in our healthcare industry. And you say that there are a lot of drawbacks to the system. So what exactly are those drawbacks? And more importantly, what's the alternative that you would recommend?
Okay. The payment system, this is more in the private sector. You know, basically you go and the doctor charges you based on what the services he gives you. So if you go with chest pain and the doctor is a good cardiologist, he takes a history from you and he looks at the ECG, maybe does a stress test for you and he says, no, I don't think this is something, you know, blocking your heart. He can't charge you that much. But he says, hey, you better do an angiogram. And does an angiogram for you. Then he can charge you maybe 10 times more.
Yeah.
So when you link the treatment the doctor gives to his income or the income of his institution, there's a tendency then for the institution or for the doctor to do more.
Yeah.
You know, so that's mainly the problem. Whereas the other system is like in the Ministry of Health, the doctors and the doctors don't get any more if they do an angiogram or they don't do an angiogram. You know, so they only do things if this really needed.
If they need it.
This issue of can I earn more by doing this and not this doesn't arise there. So it makes medicine less complicated. You know, if you're a doctor, you don't have to worry about, this is going to affect my income if I do this. And even the hospitals also will say, hey, you're not doing enough angiograms. What the hell, man? You are doing too little. You're not doing enough income. So even the administration of the hospital may tell you, do more. We should take away the payment of the institution from the kind of care. So you can have it like say in UK, the systems they have for their clinics, NHS, is capitation. You're a doctor there, you're a GP there. Maybe you and two other doctors, 3 of you are there. You're given maybe 5,000 patients to look after. And you're paid per head a certain amount, depending on how old they are, whether they have diabetes or not, and all these things. So you're paid that. Whether they come and see you that month or not, you're still paid. They come and see you 5 times, also you're paid the same amount. You know? So that is capitation. You look after their health. So if you do this good for you, if you treat them well and you make sure they live healthily and they don't come and see you often, you still get paid. Yeah. And it's good for them and good for you, you see.
The thing about this book, when I was reading it, was it's hard for me to put a finger on what exactly you wish for the country. Because in one chapter, you talk about how let Adam Smith's free hand reign, right? Control the system. That's what you say. So I say, okay, yeah, that's the free market. I'm all for the free market. But now what you're saying sounds a bit more like control from the government or something. So which is it, Doctor? Which are you more for? Are you for free market, or are you more for like a controlled welfare state?
I think it's not an either or thing, I think there's a role for a market where the market is free, Very often the market is not free because the bigger players control.
But isn't that a consequence of the free market, that it's like the whole Darwinian survival of the fittest?
That's right. So it tends to accumulate and tends to concentrate. But on the other hand, if you look at what happened in the Soviet Union, we don't have the market, but you have production by bureaucracy. It's very inefficient. The market at least gives a lot of consumer input. People don't go to that particular shoe shop. It's got all kinds of lousy shoes. It doesn't look nice. They don't fit well and all that. So people will vote with their dollars. So in that way, it democratizes society. But the problem is it tends to go over time to concentration of economic wealth and all that.
Okay.
So you got to see one way how we can tax it, how we can reduce it. You can see that. So I think the thing is, in the last 100 years, we've seen different experiments of how to organize our modern economy. And I think you've got to learn from this and take a bit of this, a bit of that, and see what best works, So in my idea of a socialist economy in the future, I can see a role of a market.
Okay.
That the market is important because it gives consumer choice. But not to the extent where the poor fellow has got no money and he can't come to the market get anything because he's got no money, you see. So you got to look into those kinds of things as well.
Just move on to our next segment in this book, which is stateless issues. In your opinion, Doctor, why do you think this issue of statelessness has not been solved? It doesn't seem to be that difficult to solve.
I think at the level of the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have got some crazy ideas, maybe rising from BTN or whatever. And some of them seem to believe that if you deny non-Malays citizenship, somehow it's good for Malays. And that's my impression I get from that. It is stupid, but that's the impression I get, because in this particular case, I'm talking about that lady who and her whole family should be by law given. It's there in the Constitution. It's very clear. We argued with them. They said no. We took it to the High Court, and the High Court said yes. This is what the law means. And they're appealing it. And you look at the cost of it, In that particular family, the grandmother is there. Okay, her elder brother killed himself. Then the two brothers of this particular girl, Teresa, the two brothers committed suicide, Because, being B40 is not easy. But you B40 and don't have a blue IC, it makes it a little more difficult. You can't get a job, you get pushed around, and the police will catch you and say, hey, where's your pass? Then you lock you up for a while, So this family, they've called me before, People have been caught and put inside, they'll call me, I got to go and try and talk to them, talk to the inspector and say, this is about the situation. It doesn't really help. Doing this in no way helps any community in this country. It doesn't help the country at all. Yeah. It makes no sense. But still they do it. And just 2 days ago, I had a similar kind of case, similar thing again. We put it up, argued under 1E, second section, second schedule, Constitution. And then, of course, JPN turned us down. So we put a judicial review. After 1 year, it came to court. And the judge said yes. But immediately they're going to appeal. So I think it is something at that level. There's some thinking that, we're going to lose control. All the stateless are going to come in. There's going to be a wave of statelessness fellas taking over the country or what.
Could it be that because I again, when it comes to Malaya, the numbers are not certain, but of course there are rumors, people alleging there's a few 100,000 stateless in the country and all that. Like in Sabah, Sarawak, you have much more, especially Sabah and all that. Sabah. Could there be a concern is if we give all these people citizenship, and as you say, most of them are non-Malay, then that will just
increase the
voters and mess up the system that is already there.
The numbers are not that large. And if you look at it, the demographic pattern has been growing in favor of Malays in Semenanjung. Non-Malays families have become smaller.
Yeah. In
Malay
fact, I
families
think
also
in about certain number of years, we're going to be just 15% of the population.
Yeah. So it's coming down. So, but even now, Malay families also, middle-class Malay families also are becoming smaller in size. But, so I think that's not a huge issue, And these people actually have been born here. And the reason they don't have documents is because of poverty, apathy, alcoholism, It's not that it suddenly sneaked in from somewhere, So I think it can be solved, But it's very sad to see that. I think here it's basically institutional racism. It's built into the system.
Yeah.
They make the law so tight, and then they refuse to budge. And then even if they're shown to be wrong in court, they want to kind of drag it on.
Is there enough in our system, whether politically or economically or whatever, the system, that allows for upward mobility of our people?
There is some, but it's much easier for children of my class to become professionals and earn 5-figure salaries. Much easier compared to the children of B40 people. Isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So,
they don't have some of the things.
All the benefits and all that, So so there is some social mobility, Like I see from the estates where I went to in the 70s, like those families which kept cattle, in addition to working but they also kept cattle, and they're more disciplined about it. And then many of the children went to universities, and they're now graduates, So I can see that movement there. So even the estate community, those who worked harder, those who were, in fact, many of them were in the Dravida Munnetra Kalagam, the South Indian nationalist, anti-caste, that kind of, forward-thinking kind of a group. That group seemed to do better. They tended to drink, not to drink. Many of them were teetotals,
Okay.
They didn't want to drink at all. They had cattle, and they emphasized education, and the kids have come up, So it is possible to have that kind of a. So it's not only socio-economic. Of course, socio-economic things plays a part, economic thing plays a part, but also if you give a person a sense of purpose, a sense of self, a sense of dignity, then that also helps them build up.
Yeah. You and together PSM are very big on environmental conservation, as you should be. It's not like it's just your party. All of us should be. But do you think that, because again, when I read your book, I feel like all the problems are interconnected. One leads to the other. For example, if you talk about a person who's suffering from low wages, can't pay their home, they don't own a home, they're struggling to pay their rent, they are at the lowest rung of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So they're not going to think about, it's all about survival, right? So do you think that all the problems that you mentioned in your book lead to the fact why green mannerisms, if you will, of the general community is not really that popular right now? You still see rivers full of rubbish. That awareness hasn't come about because we've not evolved from that Maslow hierarchy needs to the second or third rung, that our problems are keeping us
Keep us down, Yeah, but I think we can educate people, we can have, schools, get children to be more aware of what's going on, take them on field trips to riversides and to seasides and see how things are. And, I think once children see and then we can talk about it, and I think we can build that awareness. I think a lot of young people are concerned.
Yeah. One thing that I enjoyed reading was you call for the de-dollarisation. Sorry, my mistake, right? Okay. So I'm reading that and I'm like, yes, fantastic, love it. I see China, you mentioned China and all that already doing it and everything. I think India is buying oil in rupees and all that, right? Do you think that's achievable for us? We are a trade nation. We can't really rock the boat too hard.
Yeah, but we can go along with what other people are doing as well, right? The issue is the US kind of brought it upon itself. It was using the dollar as a weapon against, other people,
For sanctions and all that.
For sanctions and... So when you overdo that kind of thing, one is sanctions against Russia, the war there, but also against Cuba, against Venezuela, against Iran, against Afghanistan, simply as a bully, If you want to sanction, that should go through the UN, and the UN should sit and discuss it and say that country is too much. Let's all sanction. Fine. But you yourself saying, I'm going to sanction, and saying, if you also don't sanction with me, I'm going to sanction you as well. Cannot lah. But I think it is accelerated the de-dollarisation. So people now are looking for other ways in which they can. And I think we should, if we can also start buying things in our own currencies and kind of come off the US dollar, because no point giving them the power when they misuse that power. So I think we should not build their power back. We should not allow them.
Recently, we are seeing a lot of Malaysians, not wanting Trump to come to Malaysia. Do you agree? Do you think that's the right approach?
I think it would be a good idea if he doesn't come. America should know they're not very popular here.
But again, we are a trading nation. We can't rock the boat, right?
Well, I guess that's one thing. I guess that's why Anwar is calling him in as well. I think it all depends. You see, that's the problem in Malaysia. We are so ethnically confused that not all communities will support the Palestine issue as strongly. If you are all on one page on that, you will say, screw you, don't come. But if you say that, the communities that are not so strong pro-Palestine will say, my God, you're going to lose business, you're going to do this, what, Anwar, you stupid fella. Even now, I do hear comments of why, the people in this country who are not having enough food and all that, you're going to give food there, People are being so, not what's the word for it? Not sympathetic enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem, And if I was the government, I'd be a bit worried.
But should we solve our own problems first? In this book, you highlight a lot of problems which I 100% agree with. Food security, we can't fix that. We can't fix our wage depression. We can't fix a lot of things. And so why help somebody else when we can't even help ourselves?
Well, I guess because we're human, and I think especially if you look at Palestine or a place like Sudan and all that, people are really, really down and out. They're suffering, they're dying of, and we are quite a rich country. Despite everything else, we are a rich country. I think we should. This being human.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Yeah, we should care.
Yeah.
Doctor, I just want before we close, for people who want to buy this or pick up this book, what do you expect them to take away from your book? Or what do you hope that they take away?
Well, there are different ways of looking at this reality of Malaysia. And the PSM is trying to put forward a whole set of analysis of how we could move forward as a more harmonious and more fair society. And we hope they'll read it. And in fact, if you go through this book, it gives a very clear exposition of how PSM looks at various things,
Yeah.
And then they can start thinking, because the status quo, the capitalist status quo, is just one way of doing things. And it hasn't done very well. It's grown the economy, grown the GDP, but it hasn't distributed wealth well enough.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're saying there are other ways of doing it. So we would like to get people to look at it and engage with us.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think PSM's biggest challenge is that the how do I say it? The narrative or the way of thinking of the voter is so tied to racial issues that it somehow can't just focus on class issues, because class issues is actually the real problem. The disparity in wealth distribution and all that. It's impacting all of us.
Correct.
Like, for example, when I interviewed that professor, he was telling me how they have issues even in zakat in terms of in terms of how they distribute the help and all that. He was telling me, and I was like, wait a minute, we over here the Indians think that just Mitra is the problem. No, every community has that problem. We're the same, all of us, but these silos have divided us, I feel. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So guys, that was Dr. Jeyakumar Devaraj again with his book. Notes on Notes on the Way Forward, a Socialist Perspective. You can get it now on Gerak Budaya. Thank you so much, Doctor, for doing this. We'll see you all soon, guys. We have amazing interviews coming your way, so stay tuned. Have a great week. We'll see you. Bye.